the 26th of October 1942. The flight deck of the carrier Shokaku, 200 miles north of the Santa Cruz Islands. Lieutenant Commander Mamoru Seki prepared to lead his dive bomber squadron on what would be his final mission, watching damage control teams' battle fires from the American morning strike. The Enterprise was supposed to be dead. Naval intelligence had confirmed her destruction at Eastern Solomons 2 months earlier. Yet here she was, her Wildcats and Dauntlesses having just torn through their first wave, sending dozens of Japanese aircraft into the Pacific. Through the smoke drifting across the battle zone, Seki confronted a reality that challenged everything the Imperial Navy believed about American carrier strength. The Enterprise, the ship they had claimed destroyed, had just demonstrated combat efficiency that defied explanation. Her fighters had intercepted their strike force 50 miles out. Her anti-aircraft fire had created an impenetrable wall of steel, and she was operating with a precision that suggested not a damaged vessel, but one at peak fighting capacity. At the Imperial Japanese Naval Academy at Etajima, officers had studied the American fleet with dismissive analysis. 8 carriers total, inferior training, weak industrial base, commanders lacking warrior spirit. The Enterprise was merely another Yorktown-class carrier, 19,800 tons, technically inferior to Japanese designs. Yet as Seki prepared for his attack, he was beginning to understand a truth that would define the Pacific War. They had gravely miscalculated American power. The revelation began on the 10th of December 1941, 3 days after Pearl Harbor's triumph. Submarine 170, part of the screening force for the Pearl Harbor operation, was proceeding on the surface 121 miles northeast of Cape Halawa, confident in Japanese control of these waters. Commander Takao Sano had reported sighting Enterprise entering Pearl Harbor the previous day, assuming she was damaged and vulnerable. The submarine's destruction came with shocking suddenness. Enterprise's SBD Dauntlesses, operating with coordination that seemed impossible for a fleet supposedly crippled, caught I-70 on the surface. Within minutes, the submarine that had participated in Japan's greatest victory was heading to the bottom with all 93 hands. It was the first Japanese warship sunk by the Americans in the war, a distinction that belonged to Enterprise alone. The efficiency of the attack stunned Japanese naval commanders who learned of it. The American carrier had located and destroyed a submarine in open ocean, demonstrating search capabilities and coordination that exceeded Japanese estimates. This was not the work of a demoralized, technically inferior force, but of a highly trained, technologically advanced navy operating at peak efficiency. January 1942 brought the first large-scale encounter. During Enterprise's raids on the Marshall Islands, Japanese forces attempted interception with land-based aircraft from Roy and Kwajalein. The results defied every expectation. Enterprise's combat air patrol, supposedly inferior to Japanese pilots, shot down attacking aircraft at ratios that seemed impossible. Her anti-aircraft fire, coordinated in ways the Japanese didn't yet understand, created barriers of steel that no amount of courage could penetrate. The Marshall Islands raids demonstrated something new: radar, guided fighter interception. While the technology was still primitive by later standards, Enterprise's CXAM-1 radar could detect incoming aircraft at distances that gave her fighters crucial advantages. Japanese pilots reported being intercepted by American fighters that seemed to know exactly where they would be. Altitude advantages, always in American favor. Attacks always from the most advantageous position. The Doolittle raid in April 1942 added another dimension to Enterprise's growing reputation. While Hornet carried the B-25 bombers, Enterprise provided the protective screen with such effectiveness that no Japanese patrol vessel could get close enough for accurate reconnaissance. Her fighters maintained such aggressive patrol patterns that Japanese forces remained blind to the approaching threat until bombs fell on Tokyo. The psychological impact on the Imperial Navy was profound. One carrier had effectively paralyzed Japanese reconnaissance, enabling an attack on the homeland that should have been impossible. Combined Fleet Headquarters began allocating specific resources to tracking Enterprise's movements, a dedication of intelligence resources to a single ship that was unprecedented. Midway, the 4th of June 1942, transformed Enterprise from formidable opponent to nightmare. From the bridge of the burning carrier Akagi, Captain Taijiro Aoki watched Enterprise's dive bombers appear in clear skies that had been empty moments before. The precision of their attack, the coordination of their approach, the accuracy of their bombing, all suggested a level of training and technology that Japanese naval doctrine hadn't anticipated. In 6 minutes, Enterprise's air group destroyed 2 fleet carriers that had taken years to build and decades to train their crews. The mathematics were staggering. One American carrier had effectively eliminated half of the Japanese carrier striking force that had attacked Pearl Harbor. More devastating than the material losses were the implications. If America could produce pilots and aircrew of this quality, in these numbers, Japan faced an enemy of unprecedented capability. The impact on Japanese naval aviation was immediate and profound. Pilots who had dismissed American aviators as soft and undisciplined now spoke of them with respect bordering on fear. The Americans flew with mechanical precision, maintained formation under the heaviest fire, and pressed attacks with determination that matched Japan's best. These were not the weak, comfort-seeking enemies of propaganda, but warriors of a different kind, technically proficient, tactically sound, and backed by seemingly unlimited resources. The 24th of August 1942, the Battle of Eastern Solomons, brought the first supposedly successful attack on Enterprise. Lieutenant Commander Mamoru Seki, leading 27 dive bombers from Shokaku, achieved what appeared to be decisive hits. 3 bombs struck Enterprise, causing massive fires and casualties. Through the smoke and flames, Japanese pilots photographed what they were certain was a dying ship. Japanese naval headquarters announced Enterprise's destruction. Emperor Hirohito personally congratulated the Navy. Yet within hours, Enterprise was conducting flight operations. Within days, she was launching full strikes against Japanese positions. The ship they had definitively sunk was fully operational, a reality that shattered morale among Japanese naval aviators. The damage control capabilities Enterprise demonstrated exceeded anything in Japanese experience. Where Japanese carriers required months of yard time for major repairs, Enterprise received emergency repairs while underway. Her crew's ability to fight fires while under attack, to repair flight deck damage between airstrikes, to maintain operations despite battle damage, revealed an approach to naval warfare Japan hadn't anticipated. September 1942 saw Enterprise operating alone after the loss of Hornet's sister ships. A sign appeared on her hangar deck that reconnaissance planes photographed. Enterprise versus Japan. The psychological impact rippled through the combined fleet. One ship, openly challenging the entire Imperial Navy, and making good on that challenge by appearing at every crucial battle. The Battle of Santa Cruz, the 26th of October 1942, represented Japan's maximum effort to destroy Enterprise. The death of Lieutenant Commander Seki during his attack on Enterprise symbolized the price Japan was paying. Their best pilots, their most experienced leaders, were dying in attacks that failed to sink one ship. Seki's own death, shot down by anti-aircraft fire despite achieving bomb hits, demonstrated that even successful attacks on Enterprise came at unsustainable cost. The Japanese reported Enterprise sunk for the second time after Santa Cruz. Yet the 11th of November 1942, reconnaissance aircraft photographed her off Guadalcanal, conducting operations against Japanese positions. The psychological impact was devastating. Pilots who had risked everything, who had seen comrades die attacking her, now had to accept that their sacrifices had achieved nothing. By early 1943, Enterprise had evolved beyond her 1,942 capabilities. New radar systems, improved fighter direction, better anti-aircraft weapons, and most importantly, new aircraft that outclassed anything Japan possessed. The F-6F Hellcat, arriving in 1943, was superior to the Zero in every measurable parameter: speed, armor, firepower, and climb rate. Japanese pilot training, already strained by losses, couldn't match American production of both aircraft and aircrew. While Japan struggled to replace the veterans lost attacking Enterprise, America was producing pilots by the thousands, each trained with unlimited fuel, unlimited ammunition, and time that Japan could no longer afford. The Marshall Islands campaign in early 1944 demonstrated Enterprise at her most lethal. Her air group operated with efficiency that defied comprehension, launching 6 strikes in a single day, locating and destroying hidden fuel dumps, camouflaged aircraft, underground facilities. Japanese forces watched helplessly as Enterprise methodically eliminated years of preparation in hours. The Marianas Turkey Shoot, the 19th of June 1944, became the final proof of American superiority. Enterprise and her task force destroyed over 300 Japanese aircraft while losing fewer than 30. The kill ratios weren't combat but execution. Japanese pilots, many with less than 100 hours of flight time, faced American veterans with unlimited ammunition for training and combat experience, measured in hundreds of missions. The technology gap had become unbridgeable. Enterprise operated with systems Japan couldn't match: radar-guided interception, proximity, fused anti-aircraft shells, coordinated information centers that could track hundreds of contacts simultaneously. Her aircraft carried radar, allowing them to fight in darkness and weather that grounded Japanese operations. By late 1944, conventional attacks on Enterprise had become suicide missions with no hope of success. The kamikaze was born partly from frustration at inability to damage her through normal means. Even these desperate measures largely failed. Enterprise's anti-aircraft fire, by now refined through 3 years of combat, could create barriers that even suicide attackers couldn't penetrate. The 14th of May 1945 brought the attack that finally sent Enterprise home. Lieutenant Junior Grade Shunsuke Tomiyasu, flying his Zero in an inverted dive to avoid anti-aircraft fire, crashed through her forward elevator. The explosion blew the elevator 400 feet into the air, killed 14 men, wounded 68. It had taken the ultimate sacrifice, one pilot deliberately killing himself, to achieve what hundreds of conventional attacks had failed to accomplish. Even this success was hollow. Enterprise steamed away under her own power, her crew already fighting fires and making repairs. She had been hurt, not sunk, and only the war's approaching end prevented her return to combat. The psychological message was clear: Japan could wound but not kill American power. The statistics of Enterprise's war record, compiled after Japan's surrender, revealed the magnitude of what one ship had achieved. She had participated in nearly every major Pacific battle, sunk 71 Japanese ships, damaged 192 more, and her air groups had destroyed 911 Japanese aircraft. She earned 20 battle stars, more than any other American ship in history. But beyond statistics was psychological impact. Enterprise had become, for the Japanese Navy, the embodiment of Bislav Enterprise, American invincibility. She appeared at every crucial battle, survived every attack, and returned stronger after every damage. She proved that American industrial power could produce not just quantity but quality, that American training could create warriors equal to any, that American technology had surpassed Japanese capability. The crew quality aboard Enterprise represented something Japanese military culture struggled to comprehend. American sailors weren't motivated by emperor worship or death before dishonor, yet they fought with efficiency that exceeded Japanese standards. They repaired damage under fire, launched aircraft while under attack, maintained operations despite casualties, all with matter-of-fact professionalism that was more terrifying than fanaticism. The damage control capabilities demonstrated by Enterprise became legendary among Japanese naval officers. Time after time, she absorbed punishment that would have sunk any Japanese carrier and continued operating. Her crew's ability to fight fires while launching aircraft, to repair flight decks between strikes, to maintain combat effectiveness despite damage, revealed an approach to naval warfare that emphasized survival and continued operation over glory and sacrifice. The technological evolution Enterprise displayed was relentless. In 1942, she had basic radar and conventional anti-aircraft guns. By 1943, she had improved radar, proximity fuses, and better fighters. By 1944, she operated with integrated combat information centers, radar-guided everything, and aircraft that dominated every engagement. By 1945, she was operating on a technological level Japan never achieved. The logistics supporting Enterprise seemed impossible to Japanese observers. She operated continuously for months, thousands of miles from base, yet never lacked fuel, ammunition, replacement aircraft, or supplies. While Japanese ships struggled to maintain basic operations, Enterprise received ice cream, fresh food, mail, delivery, and replacement crew at sea. This wasn't just superior logistics, it was logistics on a scale Japan couldn't comprehend. The industrial message Enterprise conveyed was perhaps most demoralizing. She was one ship, yet behind her stood an America that could produce unlimited carriers. While Japan struggled to replace losses, America built 17 Essex-class fleet carriers, 9 Independence-class light carriers, and 115 escort carriers during the war. Enterprise wasn't unique or irreplaceable. She was simply one example of American industrial capacity. The training system that produced Enterprise's pilots and crew represented renewable superiority. Japan's carefully trained pre-war aviators, once lost, couldn't be replaced. America produced pilots faster than combat consumed them, each trained with resources Japan couldn't match. Every Enterprise pilot had unlimited fuel for training, unlimited ammunition for gunnery practice, time to develop skills. Japan's replacement pilots never received. The radar technology aboard Enterprise evolved from basic detection to sophisticated control systems that managed air battles with precision. By war's end, she could track hundreds of aircraft simultaneously, vector fighters to precise intercept points, and coordinate strikes across hundreds of miles. This wasn't just technological superiority. It was warfare conducted on different principles than Japan understood. The fighter aircraft Enterprise operated showed American industrial adaptability. The F-4F Wildcat of 1942, already competitive with the Zero when properly employed, gave way to the F-6F Hellcat that dominated every engagement. These weren't just improvements, but generational leaps in capability. Each aircraft backed by spare parts, trained mechanics, and replacement pilots that seemed infinite. The coordination Enterprise achieved between radar, fighters, and anti-aircraft guns created defensive systems Japan couldn't penetrate. By 1944, attacking Enterprise meant facing coordinated defense where every element supported every other element. Radar detected incoming strikes, fighters intercepted at maximum advantage, anti-aircraft guns created barriers at precisely calculated ranges. It was systematic warfare against which individual courage meant nothing. The maintenance capabilities that kept Enterprise operational stunned Japanese technical officers. While Japanese carriers needed months in dock for major repairs, Enterprise received repairs at sea from specialized ships. Battle damage that would sideline Japanese ships for months was repaired in days. Equipment that failed was replaced immediately from vast stockpiles. This wasn't just superior maintenance, it was industrial warfare where material superiority guaranteed victory. The information processing capability aboard Enterprise exceeded anything Japan achieved. Her Combat Information Center could process data from multiple radars, coordinate dozens of fighters, track hundreds of contacts, and direct precise responses to any threat. Information flowed from sensors to decision-makers to weapons in real time, creating response capabilities that seemed prescient to Japanese attackers. The crew specialization aboard Enterprise reflected American industrial organization. Where Japanese ships relied on small groups of experts, every American sailor was trained in multiple roles. Damage control wasn't a specialty but universal training. Every man could fight fires, Every officer could coordinate repairs. Every crew member understood their ship's survival depended on collective competence, not individual heroism. The psychological warfare Enterprise waged simply by existing exceeded any propaganda value. Every time Japan announced her sinking, only to have her appear at the next battle, Japanese credibility eroded. Pilots who claimed to have sunk her faced ridicule when she appeared again. Intelligence officers who confirmed her destruction lost credibility. The Grey Ghost nickname reflected not respect but frustration at an enemy that wouldn't follow the rules of war as Japan understood them. The strategic impact of Enterprise extended beyond her physical presence. Japanese operations were planned around avoiding her, resources allocated to tracking her, entire operations modified based on her possible appearance. One ship influenced strategic planning across the entire Pacific, forcing Japan to account for her presence even when she was thousands of miles away. The human cost of attacking Enterprise was catastrophic for Japanese naval aviation. Air groups were destroyed, reformed, and destroyed again attacking her. The institutional knowledge of Japanese carrier aviation died in her anti-aircraft fire. Veterans who might have trained the next generation instead died achieving nothing against her defenses. The technological learning curve Enterprise displayed was exponential. Each month she operated with capabilities that exceeded the previous month. Each battle taught lessons immediately incorporated into doctrine. Each new technology was integrated into existing systems, creating capabilities that multiplied rather than simply added. Japan was fighting not just a ship but a learning system that evolved faster than they could adapt. The supply chain supporting Enterprise represented industrial warfare on unprecedented scale. She consumed more fuel in a month than entire Japanese task forces used in 6 months. Her aircraft expended more ammunition in single strikes than Japan allocated for entire operations. Yet she never ran short, never reduced operations for lack of supply, never showed any limitation that Japan could exploit. The pilot quality Enterprise maintained, despite losses, reflected systematic superiority. While Japan's pilot quality declined precipitously as veterans died, Enterprise's air group maintained or improved capability. New pilots arrived trained to standards that exceeded Japan's veterans. This wasn't just training superiority, it was systematic production of excellence that individual skill couldn't match. The cultural message Enterprise conveyed challenged Japanese assumptions about American society. Her crew weren't warriors in any sense Japan recognized, yet they fought with efficiency that exceeded Bushido's demands. They complained about food while fighting magnificently, wrote letters home, criticizing officers while executing orders perfectly, maintained morale through humor rather than ideology. This was warfare as profession rather than calling, yet it proved superior to warrior tradition. The damage Enterprise inflicted on Japanese strategy went beyond ships sunk or aircraft destroyed. She proved that technology and industry would triumph over spirit and skill, that systematic superiority would defeat individual excellence, that industrial warfare operated on principles against which traditional military virtues were helpless. Every survival, every victory, every appearance at another battle reinforced the message that Japan had challenged a power beyond their comprehension. The final assessment of Enterprise's impact came from Japanese naval officers themselves after the war. She had been more than an enemy ship. She had been proof of inevitable defeat. From the moment she sank I-70, she demonstrated American superiority in every aspect of naval warfare: technology, training, logistics, damage control, and above all, industrial production that guaranteed unlimited replacement of any losses. Admiral Motome Ugaki, Yamamoto's chief of staff, wrote in his diary about Enterprise's psychological impact, "She has become our obsession, our nightmare, our proof that we cannot win. One ship has shown us that we are fighting not a nation but an industrial machine of unlimited capacity." The transformation was complete. The Japanese Navy that started the war, confident in their superiority, ended it understanding they had never had a chance. Enterprise had been their teacher in this harsh lesson, appearing at every crucial moment to demonstrate American power, surviving every attempt to sink her to prove American invincibility, and ultimately becoming the symbol of why Japan lost the war. She was called the Grey Ghost, but she was really a mirror, showing the Japanese Navy the truth they didn't want to see, that courage alone could not overcome technology, that skill could not defeat system, that the age of individual warrior prowess had ended, and the age of industrial warfare had begun. Enterprise didn't just defeat the Japanese Navy, she proved that their entire concept of warfare was obsolete. The story of Enterprise from the Japanese perspective is ultimately one of growing recognition of inevitable defeat. She began as just another American carrier, technically inferior to Japanese designs. She evolved into proof that America had achieved a level of military superiority that no amount of courage, skill, or sacrifice could overcome. In her survival, her victories, her technological evolution, and her relentless appearances at every crucial battle, she embodied the arsenal of democracy at its absolute peak. The Japanese called her the Grey Ghost, and in their mythology, ghosts were spirits that could not be killed, that haunted the living, that brought doom to those who encountered them. In this, their name for Enterprise was perfectly chosen. She haunted their operations, brought doom to their forces, and proved impossible to destroy despite their most desperate efforts. The final irony was that Enterprise, the ship Japan couldn't sink, was scrapped in 1958 despite efforts to preserve her, but her scrapping was perhaps fitting. She was never just about steel and armor, but about American industrial might, technological superiority, and systematic approach to warfare that transformed naval combat forever. What she represented, the arsenal of democracy at its peak, had already changed history. The Renda, Japanese officers who survived the war, understood this truth. Enterprise proved that the age of individual warrior skill had ended and the age of industrial warfare had begun. Every bomb that failed to sink her, every attack she survived, every battle she dominated, drove home the same message. America had achieved military superiority on a scale that made resistance futile. In the end, Enterprise achieved something no propaganda could have accomplished. She proved to the Japanese Navy, through direct demonstration rather than argument, that they had challenged a power beyond their ability to defeat. One ship, through her survivability, her effectiveness, and her evolution, convinced an entire navy that their cause was hopeless. She was, in every measurable sense, the most dangerous American warship of World War II, not just for the damage she inflicted, but for the truth she represented. That American industrial democracy had created military power on a scale the world had never seen. The transformation she triggered in Japanese thinking, from confidence to despair, from superiority to recognition of defeat, stands as one of the most complete psychological victories in naval history. Enterprise didn't just fight the Japanese Navy. She broke their belief in victory. And in war, the loss of belief in victory guarantees defeat. That was her ultimate contribution to American victory in the Pacific. She proved, battle by battle, survival by survival, that Japan had already lost the war the moment they challenged American industrial might.